I sat at the bar, the amber whiskey in my glass untouched, swirling slowly beneath my fingers. The air buzzed with low conversation and clinking glasses, but all I could hear was the pounding in my chest. Not fear, not doubt, but cold, sharp anticipation. My eyes stayed locked on the entrance like a man waiting for a storm he knew would come. Tonight was the night. The night everything changed. The night the truth would no longer hide in shadows. A year ago, if someone had told me that my world would fall apart in a single moment, I would have laughed. I had everything. A girlfriend I adored, a circle of friends I trusted, and a career that was finally starting to blossom. Emily and I had been together for 3 years. We had dreams, plans, something I believed was solid, permanent. Everyone said we were perfect together. She was magnetic, confident, charming, always the life of the room. I was quieter, the kind of man who watched more than he spoke, who noticed the details others missed. Maybe that's why they liked her more. She glowed while I stood in the shade, and they all leaned toward her warmth. It happened at one of those lazy house parties. Beer in plastic cups, the same tired stories. Everyone pretending they hadn't outgrown the game. Emily had been distant all night. She kept whispering with her friend Lisa, sharing looks that sent an unease crawling down my spine. Something wasn't right. I pulled her aside, asked what was going on. She smiled like she'd been rehearsing the moment. "I need to tell you something," she said sweetly, voice thick with false empathy. "I've been seeing someone else." Everything stopped. My mind blanked, body frozen, like my soul had stepped out of the room to avoid the wreckage. She tilted her head, giving me that pitying look you might give a wounded animal. "I need someone with ambition," she added, slow and deliberate. "Someone who isn't just coasting." I didn't react. Not because I didn't feel it, but because I felt too much. She smirked then. That smug, heartless smirk. As if this was a game, and she had just scored the final point. I turned to the people I once called friends, searching for someone, anyone, who might say, "Hey, this isn't right." But they just stood there, shifting awkwardly. Lisa, of all people, shrugged and said, "I mean, she kinda has a point, man." A low chuckle came from someone else. A few nods. And in that instant the room tipped sideways. I wasn't just the man who got cheated on. I was the punchline to a joke they had already laughed at. I left that night without a word. Not because I was weak, but because I needed space. Space to bleed, to breathe, to rebuild. Because betrayal doesn't just crack you, it reshapes you. Lying awake that night, staring into the dark, something in me shifted. I realized they hadn't just hurt me, they'd underestimated me. And that was their mistake. I started watching, listening, gathering. Piece by piece, I uncovered Emily's real man, Greg. A predictable type. Arrogant, loud, worked in finance, treated women like prizes he collected. As I dug deeper, I realized it wasn't just her betrayal I was dealing with. It was theirs. My friends. My so-called brothers. They had known. Maybe not everything, but enough. And they stood by silent. I wasn't going to play the victim in their story. The first strike was subtle. Emily and Greg lived for the spotlight, for the image. One night, she posted a photo. The two of them at a luxury restaurant, captioned, "A real man knows how to treat a woman." I made sure her boss saw it. See, Emily had always been careful to keep our relationship private at work. Always thinking 2 steps ahead, leaving doors open for opportunities. But an affair? With the son of a major client? That was different. Whispers started. 2 weeks later, she was sitting in a disciplinary meeting about professional conduct. The cracks were beginning to show. Then came the second move, more precise, more personal. I organized a reunion. Same bar. Same people. Different version of me. I walked in with calm, deliberate confidence. Nodded at a few faces, ignored others. They expected me to be broken, bitter. But I was ice-controlled and unreadable. Emily arrived, arm hooked around Greg, glowing with arrogance. She leaned toward me, that condescending smirk on her lips again, ready to jab. But I beat her to it. "You should check your phone," I said, calmly sipping my drink. Confusion flickered in her eyes. Then her phone buzzed. Greg's followed. Then Lisa's. One by one, their expressions changed, smiles faltering, faces paling. I had sent them everything. Every text. Every photo. Every lie she'd ever whispered to me while planning a life with someone else. Or someone's. Greg turned to her, face hardening. You told me I was the only one. Emily stammered, lips parting uselessly. Greg, I didn't mean. He stepped back. You're a goddamn joke. The others looked at her the way they once looked at me. Eyes full of judgment, disbelief, and a little fear. Lisa couldn't meet my eyes. Emily tried to regain control, her voice sharp with panic. You planned this, she hissed. I smiled. You always said I lacked ambition. She stormed out. Lisa followed, head down. The others stayed seated, silent, unsure what to say. And in that stillness, it clicked. They finally saw what I had become. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. But that night, something fundamental in me shifted again. This time in the right direction. I wasn't the broken one anymore. I was the man who had been wronged, yes. But also the man who had risen. A few months later, I landed a new job. One that paid better, challenged me more. One where I wasn't just surviving, I was growing. Emily, her name doesn't come up much anymore. But last I heard, she was struggling to recover from the scandal. Turns out, when people think you're unfaithful in your personal life, they begin to wonder about your professional loyalty too. Betrayal cuts deep. But nothing wounds more than realizing the person you dismissed, the one you laughed at, was always 5 steps ahead, and never coming back.